Good evening. I'm calling the meeting to order as it is now 6 o'clock. To begin, could we do the roll call, please?
Absolutely. Councilmember DeWillis?
Here.
Councilmember Dowell is absent. Councilmember Marks?
Here.
Councilmember Mosley?
Here.
Councilmember Wilden?
Here.
Vice Mayor Coates?
Here.
And Mayor Shaw?
Here.
And we have a quorum.
Would you all please join me for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay,
Madam Mayor, I'd like to just say that Councilmember Dowell is now present.
thank you. Okay, next on our agenda is a brief summary of current events by the mayor, city council, and/or city manager. The public body does not propose, discuss, deliberate, or take legal action on any matter brought up during this summary unless the specific matter is properly noticed for legal action. Who's up first?
I can be.
Thank you.
Hi, my pleasure. Once again, just announcing November 1st, the Walk a Mile in My Shoes with the Verde Valley Homeless Coalition. 8:30 check-in at the Homeless Coalition, which is literally right across the street from us. 9 a.m. to 12 noon is the open house. Any information that you may or may not need, get online with our bishop at verdevalleyhomelesscoalition.com. And hopefully that'll answer any and all questions. Thank you.
I'll go next. I'd like to start with acknowledging the wonderful new glass sliding doors that were recently installed at the library. These replace old, heavy to open and well-worn doors. Thanks go to city staff for getting grant funding for this project, as well as prevailing in the face of obstacles to complete this project. I'd also like to recommend to the public to view the recently posted videos promoting Arizona Cities and Towns Week. These short videos are a really wonderful way to get a little insight into the faces behind the departments that run our city. On October 8th, a beautiful fall evening, council and staff participated in the National Night Out at the Cottonwood Kids Park. Many attendees told me that they enjoy the event and attend every year. Yesterday, council attended the retirement celebration for Tanya Sims, Executive Director of Verde Valley's Habitat for Humanity. She has done a great service to our community, overseeing the thrift store, managed mortgage lending, construction of single-family homes, and managed the critical home repair program, which has served about 200 people since its inception in 2016. And then today, the city manager, economic development staff, and I attended the Verde Valley Regional Economic Forum. There was interesting data presented on the economic outlook for the Verde Valley, as well as ideas and success stories relating to housing and tourism. I also participated in a great breakout group session on diversifying the business economy in the Verde Valley, which led to some recommended actions. That's my report for tonight. Thank you.
Any other updates? Yeah, it's, I think there's been plenty to do. What do you have for us, Mr. Safari?
Madam Mayor, members of council, if you bear with me, I have quite a list of briefing items this evening. Beginning on Saturday, October 25th, the Experimental Aircraft Association, Chapter 952, based in Cottonwood, is offering free flights for children of ages 8 through 17 during its biannual Young Eagles event. This event will start at 8 a.m. and continue until approximately noon. About a dozen pilots will participate in this initiative. After each flight, the participant will receive a free logbook which is used to track hours as well as complimentary access to online private pilot ground school courses. Also this weekend, the 24th and 25th, the Arizona State Trail Summit is being hosted here in Cottonwood at the Cottonwood Community Clubhouse. This is a statewide gathering of trail advocates, land managers, nonprofits, and volunteers who work to support sustainable outdoor recreation, trail policy, and access in Arizona. It consistently draws over 100 participants, and having it here is a great recognition for Cottonwood's role in regional outdoor recreation. Earlier this month, as the Vice Mayor mentioned, the City and Council proclaimed October 19th through the 25th as Arizona Cities and Towns Week. I've had the distinct pleasure as being the interviewer of staff related to that, and they've really stepped up. And I think, those videos are worth watching for those community members to see that we are, in fact, their neighbors and shop where they shop. We live here, and putting forth a better Cottonwood is what we all work for. The Parks and Recreation Department invites everyone to join us for the Halloween trick-or-treating at the annual Trunk or Treat event on Halloween night from 4 to 6 p.m. at the Rec Center parking lot. I'd like to put a shameless plug in and say that the administration department is working very hard, and we hope to win the prize this year. The theme for this year is Frightening Fairy Tales Found at Your Local Library. The public is invited to attend the annual Walkin' on Main event in Old Town Cottonwood on Saturday, November 8th from 11 to 5 p.m. Admission is free for all ages. Enjoy live music throughout the day, a car show, and vendors from across the state. There will also be an art show in the community clubhouse. Attendees can purchase tickets for wine tasting experience organized by the Verde Valley Wine Consortium. And lastly, the Historic Preservation Commission meeting scheduled for Wednesday, October 22nd has been canceled. The next regular meeting will take place on November 19th.
Mr. Suentes, the videos for City and Towns Week, are they on YouTube or Facebook? What?
All of the above.
Okay.
We'll have them as part of the campaign for Arizona Cities and Towns. They asked to put them on social media, but we will be hosting them on our YouTube channel just so folks can see all of those. The full videos, we obviously took snippets and put them on the social media, but it's been very, very good.
The only thing that I would add is that on Saturday, I was really very amazed to see the number of nonprofits who came to the Verde Valley Service Fair. These are entities that provide a wide variety of services to people in the community. There were organizations that I knew about, that I had talked to and met with in the past, and others that I didn't even know existed. We have a remarkable array of volunteers in our community doing what they can to give back and to help wherever help is needed. It's a very amazing event to see that number of various groups doing various work to help people in a community this size. It's pretty awesome.
I just want to take a second to apologize to everyone who's attending this meeting because of my attire and my hoodie. This is not what I usually do, but I ran home, grabbed my stuff, and ran out. So I don't mean any disrespect by wearing a hoodie to the meeting. So I just want to get that out right now. It was literally running out as my wife was throwing me the computer. So I apologize. That's not trying to be disrespectful to anybody.
We're glad you're here. Okay, next on the agenda, if there are no other updates, is call to the public. The public may address the council on matters directly relating to city business that are not listed on the agenda during the call to the public by submitting a written request to speak form to the city clerk no later than the conclusion of the brief summary of current events portion of the agenda. There is a 3-minute time frame per speaker, and all comments shall be addressed to the council as a whole and not to any member thereof, staff, or audience. The mayor may direct a speaker to stop speaking and leave the podium or adjourn the meeting if anyone becomes disorderly or uncivil, makes personal attacks against any person or persons, or if the mayor determines that the speaker is speaking about items that are outside the city's legal authority to act. The only person for call to the public per se is Mary Lou Rose. Would you like to come up, Mrs. Rose?
Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Mary Lou Rose, and I live in Clarkdale. This week, October 19th through 25th, is National Lead Poisoning Prevention Week, a reminder that lead exposure isn't a problem of the past. It's happening right now over our heads in Cottonwood and Clarkdale from repetitive flight school operations. The EPA estimates that 70% of all airborne lead in the U.S. comes from piston-driven aircraft, the same kind used for flight training. Every time one of these planes performs a touch and go, it releases ultrafine lead particulate that settles into our soil and our lungs. Lead is a potent neurotoxin that causes permanent brain damage or lack of cognitive development in children. The EPA is clear, there is no safe level of lead exposure. Most of these flights come from Prescott flight schools conducting repetitive training that serves their own needs, not ours, yet it's the residents who bear the health and noise impacts. The ADEQ already monitors the slag pile, proving that local air quality can be tracked when there's a will to do so. There's no reason that the same level of oversight shouldn't apply to airborne lead and ultrafine particles from aircraft. We've been told for years that aviation will switch to unleaded fuel, but that's decades away. It's not happening soon. As the city reviews how the airport is managed and who represents the public interest, I hope you remember that public health is not a special interest. It's your core responsibility. The Airport Commission has shown time and time again it prioritizes aviation interests over community health. That's why this council must take the lead. Repetitive flight training in planes burning leaded fuel should not be allowed over neighborhoods. The city of Cottonwood owns the airport, not the other way around. The commission doesn't own it, nor an Embry-Riddle. You have both the power and duty to protect residents from unnecessary and harmful exposure to lead. This week is about prevention, about stopping harm before it happens. Please use your voice and authority to put public health first. We deserve clean air and a community that truly puts our health over convenience, politics, or aviation pressure. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next I have a proclamation. Whereas breast cancer remains one of the most common and devastating diseases affecting millions of individuals and families across the United States and around the world, and whereas 1 in 8 women in the United States will face breast cancer during their lifetime, and men are also at risk, though less frequently, and whereas early detection, timely treatment, and continued research are critical to improving survival rates and quality of life for those diagnosed with breast cancer. And whereas October is recognized nationally as Breast Cancer Awareness Month, a time to honor survivors, remember those lost, support those currently battling the disease, and raise awareness about prevention and treatment. And whereas we commend the courage and resilience of breast cancer survivors, the dedication of healthcare professionals, and the tireless efforts of researchers and advocates working toward a cure. And whereas we encourage all citizens to educate themselves about breast cancer risk factors, schedule regular screenings, and support organizations that provide care, resources, and hope to those affected. Now, therefore, I, Ann Shaw, Mayor of the City of Cottonwood, and on behalf of the Cottonwood City Council, do hereby proclaim October 2025 as Breast Cancer Awareness Month in the City of Cottonwood, and urge all residents to join in activities and initiatives that promote awareness, foster hope, and advance the cause of ending breast cancer for future generations. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand this 21st day of October, 2025.
Madam Mayor, if you could please, we had hoped that Tricia Lewis would be here to accept this. She's back on light duty this week. For those that don't know, she's been battling this horrible disease and is on the tail end of recovery. She's had some surgery and things are looking very, very good for her. But she's just back this week and wasn't able to make it through the full day. And so I would be honored to accept this proclamation on her behalf for the city of Cottonwood.
Just one more thing, if I may. Breast cancer does not just strike women. Someone near to me, I had breast cancer. It was a man. And 6 members of my family have had breast cancer. 6 didn't survive, and 3 are so far alive, including me. So I dare say that everybody in this audience has had some experience, good or bad, hopefully good, with breast cancer in their family or friends. So this is important to me.
Thank you. The agenda also has an additional proclamation, but in view of circumstances, we're going to postpone that one until another meeting time. So the next thing up is presentations. Number 1 under presentation says presentation to the City Council regarding the proposed contracting for services for federal advocacy and strategy consulting, state public affairs and government relations, and grant writing and administration services for the City of Cottonwood. Excuse me. Hi, Mr. Bigelow. We're ready.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. Ryan Bigelow, Director of Strategic Initiatives. My presentation tonight is going to be to tee up 3 of your consent agenda items, trying to work on efficiency here. So items 1 through 3. We have agreements for state public affairs and government relations. We have an agreement for a federal lobbyist, and we have an agreement for a grant writer and an administration. I have 3 different organizations to perform those duties, and I have at least 2, if not 3, online via Zoom if there are any further questions or discussion needed. The first organization is for state public affairs and government relations. This is High Ground. Their priorities will be to ensure that our priorities are represented at the state for infrastructure, transportation, and housing funding discussions. They'll be able to provide early warning and policy analysis on legislative issues impacting all municipalities, because one of the reasons we really like High Ground is they are currently contracted by the League of Arizona Cities and Towns for lobbying services. So their range is expansive. They work with a lot of different communities, and they'll be involved in conversations that don't necessarily have to pertain to Cottonwood, but will be able to give us some warning signs. They'll help us build partnerships with legislators and state agency staff to advance local projects and regional collaboration. They'll help identify potential funding programs and legislative appropriations aligned with city needs. And I think most importantly, and I know that those of you who attended the League of Cities and Towns got to see kind of some of their work, whether you knew it was High Ground or not, but they're very visible at the League. They're around, and they have a lot of representation, and we'd be very excited to work with High Ground. I'd also like to mention, this is action item 1.12 on the strategic plan, city priorities, to ensure city priorities are communicated to state and federal agencies. So this is also knocking out one of those. The federal lobbyist is Nexus Consulting. We're looking for a contract with them. They will help us secure federal appropriations and earmarks for local priorities such as water infrastructure, transportation, housing, and economic development. They'll help us by monitoring and influencing federal legislation and regulatory actions that may impact the city. They'll be enhancing Cottonwood's visibility with federal decision makers and aligning local projects with national funding priorities, coordinating advocacy strategies with regional and state partners to maximize and leverage impact. And then ultimately, I think we were most impressed with Nexus because they're proven record securing federal appropriations for Arizona cities and towns. We actually, Mr. Cifuentes had a conversation with another group, and they actually said, you know what, you can contract with us, but Nexus is the group to go with in the state of Arizona. So we felt really good about that. And then for grant writer and administration, we talked to several different groups, but we're recommending Kim Joyce and Associates here. The way things are at the federal and state level right now, things are changing rapidly, and we feel like this will help us stay on top of those changes, identifying and securing federal, state, and private grant opportunities that align with our council priorities, preparing high-quality competitive applications with well-documented needs, outcomes, and compliance measures, helping us with tracking grant performance, ensuring regulatory compliance, and managing reporting requirements, reducing the reliance on the general fund by leveraging outside funding for key community projects. And again, we talked to several different groups here. Kim Joyce and Associates has a team of nearly 30 employees with experience, including rural Arizona. So they're in our state, they have experience in our state, and they have a team. We feel like the workload that we could hopefully provide them is going to be more than just one or two individuals would be able to handle. So we love the idea of them having a team. And also, this is action item 2.1 on our strategic plan to increase competitive grant engagement. So for the procurement and the budget of this, all three of these organizations are able to utilize a cooperative purchasing agreement, so they have agreements with existing organizations. We're able to piggyback off of those. All three agreements require council approval, as they are not in our current budget. So we're asking for approval from the Council Reserve Fund, which is nearly $1.6 million. And for our high ground, it's not to exceed $78,000. Nexus Consulting would be not to exceed $90,000. And Kim Joyce and Associates not to exceed $40,000 for all three of those agreements. And with that, I will take any questions, or we've got some folks joining us via Zoom if you have any specific questions for them.
Just to make sure, I don't want people to think that we are approving 1.6 million. That's really.
That is not what you're approving tonight. No,
Right.
you have, that is what is in your council reserve fund. The total approval for tonight would be $208,000 for this year, leaving you 1.3 or almost $1.4 million in your council reserve fund.
Do we have a way after this year is done to see the ROI on this?
It's a really
I know it's going to be somewhat subjective, but at the same time.
Right. Good question. We definitely had that conversation with some of these groups too, and depending on what your priorities are will depend on if they're able to, the measure. If we have certain bills that they want to attack or jump on or jump against, we would like to note that. If they have appropriations specifically, that would be interesting to see. I will also caution council to know that some of these things take time. So, 1 year with a group might not be enough to establish all the relationships and to write all the grants that are needed to have that exact ROI, but ROI is definitely something we'll be monitoring.
Mr. Dowell, if I could follow up on that through the mayor. My experience has been working with them that sometimes it's 2 to 3 years working specifically through various grant programs. Oftentimes, the benefit will come that the advocacy firms, let's say we apply for a grant for a transportation project and we're not awarded, but that grant agency offers a debrief. Typically, those advocacy groups will set up that debrief and work with folks in that department back either in the Beltway or at the state level, and they can talk you through, how we could make amendments to those grant agreements to make the project more favorable or worth more points in coming years. I've had experience in using debriefs to be awarded either the second or the third round, which is the second or the third year. One grant we were awarded in the previous community $15.5 million. So over the course of those 3 years, we spent $210,000 in advocacy fees, but we had a tremendous return on investment. The other could come as we start to look at, there's been kind of constant pressure to reduce the sales tax on groceries by having a state lobbyist and be able to have a voice. It may be more of a return on investment in dollars not lost as opposed to some got. But I think the key steps and the next steps would be for these advocacy groups to present in front of council and get an idea what this council would like to see for your legislative platform for next year. That gives them their marching orders, and then as they are on the lookout, not only for grant that we can apply for at the staff level, but they have marching orders from council as to what's important from them, be it local control, be it sales tax, be it housing. That can be in the forefront of their mind, and they will work with Ryan and I to be able to let us know when bills come up that either we should support or oppose, and then those will come back to council for individual support, and you'll be able to see that interaction.
Thank you.
So after this fiscal year, will this become a line item, or will we need to continue to fund it through reserves?
We would hope that council will consider it in the next budget. If by then we should have probably 6 months worth of working with these, and council can make the determination if that's something that they feel is worthwhile to keep in the budget, and then we can move forward with that. We would have to obviously include a small portion for the one-year contract in that budget, but if council has a desire, we should include the full funding and let that play out. But council will have had interactions already, and I believe this council will have a feel for how comfortable they feel moving forward with these contracts.
And a lot, if not all of the city, not all, but many of the cities in the state of Arizona and the United States for that matter, all have these things. And this has been a long time coming for the city, and it's way past due. So I would hope everybody on the council is in favor of it.
I feel that it's absolutely essential at this point. We have a relatively small staff, and their ability to be at the legislature, to be lobbying for things that are going to affect us very specifically. One of the things that was pointed out was the effort to repeal the food tax, which would have really hurt us badly. And to have experienced lobbyists there who are actually there at the legislature, because that's really hard to do. It's really hard for council and staff to be running back and forth from the legislature. We need communication directly with them. And as far as grants go, yeah, that too is essential. We really need to be able to tap into funds that we may or may not. I don't think that we've done badly with that, and I'm not trying to imply that. I'm just thinking that it offers a possible new horizon for grant applications.
And I would agree with everything that's been said. I think that this is money well spent. Certainly, I was encouraged by the background material for Nexus Consulting, which showed how many millions of dollars they can bring to municipalities, Flagstaff in particular. So they have a very clear demonstrated track record, so that gives me a lot of confidence. But like Councilmember Dowell, I would like to see some simple metrics applied to the extent possible to measure performance of these three firms. Are there other comments, questions?
Just one clarification, as I always do. As it's written in here, we are to approve each, it says we're to approve each consent agenda item separately. Can we do one motion? Or should we do it separately?
Yes, no, it's with them on the consent calendar as
Okay.
normal, the consent calendar can be approved by one single motion.
Okay, then I so move that to approve the consent agenda of October 21st, 2025.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have ordinances and public hearings. The first public hearing is to introduce and hold a public hearing regarding the adoption of ordinance number 765, amendment to the City of Cottonwood Municipal Code, Title 8, Health and Safety.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. I'm Ordinance Enforcement Supervisor Beth Pomeroy. I haven't been formally introduced to you all because I'm fairly new in my position. So as you can imagine, I'm a little bit nervous tonight. This evening I've been tasked with presenting Ordinance 765, which addresses the text amendments to Municipal Code Title 8, Health and Safety. The proposed changes were reviewed by Presiding Magistrate Kelly, City Attorney Butner, and Administrative Hearing Officer Foreman, who provided both positive feedback and proposed changes which were implemented by staff. If the council passes a vote to adopt this ordinance, it would be effective in 30 days from today, which would be November 20, 2025. Our request tonight is a public hearing, consideration, and adoption of Ordinance 765 for the proposed text amendment to the Cottonwood Municipal Code, Title 8, Health and Safety. The purpose of the amendments is to provide clarity to ambiguous sections of the code, enhance the standards utilized by our department to determine if a violation has occurred and the criteria, to update, relocate, and add definitions where applicable, and to reflect the current standard operating procedure utilized by community development. In addition to enhancing the overall readability, understanding, and flow of the ordinance. Some significant changes have been made to the Title 8, and one of the things I wanted to tell you is that the bullet points that I've presented in the next two slides do coincide with the staff report that was submitted, and that if you have any questions as I move forward, please feel free to stop and interrupt me. The first most significant change is the rename of this section, or this chapter 812, to nuisance, from nuisance abatement to public nuisance. Public nuisance generally refers to any conduct that interferes with the rights of the public. While abatement is a legal term, which means the removal or correction of a problem which is against public policy or endangers health and safety, and eliminates public nuisance violations. The name change in itself lends to a better understanding of the code. We've also added, amended, and relocated several of the definitions. We've added the definition of public nuisance. We've also added the definition of abatement. We've relocated some of the definitions in order to, again, make the flow and understanding of the particular rules and regulations more easier to understand. I apologize. We've also added some new violations for health and safety, specifically violations with regards to noise, odors, issues that interfere with public right-of-way, and also to establish conditions which identify issues that may create an imminent peril that must cease immediately. I'm sorry, I got a little tongue-tied. So, again, to identify conditions that would create an immediate need to cease and desist, so that we would be able to have those differentiated from things that could be issued a warning and given a certain number of days to fix. Yes, please, thank you. We've also indicated that we have renamed notice to abate to notice to comply. I do want to let you know that this particular change was suggested by the presiding magistrate, Kelly, of the municipal court. It was her suggestion that we change this again to make it more easily understandable to the regular constituents. In looking at the code, we moved things around. And in section 8.12.040, contents was moved downwards to different chapters, and a new chapter, enforcement, was put in its place. It just seemed to make sense that we would list the enforcement procedures and then tell you what was in the enforcement notice that we were issuing. And as I indicated, we also were very specific about adding the notice to comply enforcement procedures. The procedures were added specifically to make sure that we were delineating the actual process by which code enforcement follows through. So the process that is currently in place is the process that was presented here. We also added a section called inspection warrant. The idea behind an inspection warrant would be to allow us to have access to the property. Currently, as code enforcement, we are only allowed to take photographs and to view violations from the public right-of-way. So if we're not able to see a violation from the public right-of-way, it's very hard for us to move forward with enforcement. The inspection warrant would give us an opportunity to go to the judge and explain why we might need to have immediate access or access to the personal property. And those would only be utilized in possible life-threatening cases, such as extreme hoarding. And it would, again, allow the enforcement officers access to the private property in order to review and address possible violations. In this section, we added an appeals review. We felt it was important to add this portion because this will allow the homeowner or the individual who's been cited the opportunity to come to the Community Development Division and make an appeal and say, look, we don't feel this is an actual violation, and therefore this is why we think that this violation should be ripped up and thrown away. So we have utilized this process currently, so we wanted to make sure that we put this in place so that if a violation is issued and someone feels that it's just not warranted, that they don't have a violation, their weeds are perfectly acceptable, for example, then they can come and provide information to the Community Development Director indicating why they believe this particular violation warning or notice should be removed. In addition, we did relocate a lot of other things. Again, because the appeals process that was under 8.12040 really dealt with the appeal of the administrative hearing judge's decision, not the actual violation itself. So we did move that section downward. The most significant change that we've made to the Title VIII was relocating the hearing officer penalties and reinforcement from 8.44 and creating a new chapter, 813. We did this because it just seemed to make sense that if we were talking about the violations and the process, that the process would continue through with the hearing officer, because after a notice of violation is issued, and perhaps they have failed to abate those violations, we do refer them to an administrative hearing officer. So again, just for flow and understanding, it seemed to make the most sense to move the hearing officer penalties and enforcement up underneath the issue, the section that we've retitled as public nuisance. As it was indicated earlier, we did relocate, procedures was relocated from the 842 to 812.050, notice comply procedures. Again, the idea being that it would be easy to follow, so that if you're reading the code and you're following through, you can really definitively understand what we do, when we do it, and why. Notice of violation procedures. Again, just where it was relocated, once again, to make sure that there was an easy flow and understanding. Finally, inspections, again, was relocated because we felt that it needed to be moved up under the procedures, because it is a procedure that we would like to see the code enforcement officers be able to utilize, is to have that inspection, and therefore the inspections and the inspection warrant was added. And then again, to moving the hearing officer was, again, for the continuality, the ease of understanding, that the previous chapters had separated, and therefore we thought it would be best if we could bring those all together. In closing, the proposed amendments are intended to make the health and safety violations and code enforcement procedure clear and understandable to the average constituent. I have to admit that when I first read the code, I had to look up some of the words. And so if I have to look up the words, then that means our average citizen is also going to have difficulty trying to figure out what it is that we're enforcing. If the code is easy to comprehend, the compliance standards are easy to discern, and the enforcement procedure is fair, voluntary compliance, which is ultimately the goal, may be much easier to achieve.
Thank you, Ms. Pomeroy. That was, I enjoyed reading word for word through every bit of all of that late last night. No, I'm just kidding. I read until I couldn't anymore, but I just wanted to say that because I appreciate the tediousness of the work of going through and parsing the language and trying to perfect it and make it as clear as possible. So, yeah. First, I would like to open the floor to the public. If there are any questions or comments from the public, now is the time to comment on this. Hearing none, I will close the floor to the public and ask council if there are any questions.
So I have one question. It talks about section 8.13 and the appeals process, where community development worked with the presiding magistrate to propose changes to the appeals process. Appeals of the administrative hearing officer will go to the Yavapai County Superior Court. Is that a change?
So yes, that is a change. That
And what,
is,
a change from, what was it?
it previously was supposed to go back to, the municipal court, but it was determined that that was not the best procedure. And in speaking with Judge Kelly, she really persuaded us to change that appropriately, as she felt that that was the best venue for those kinds of appeals.
Is there any kind of coordination that needs to be done with the Superior Court, or is this in accordance with state statute? Or?
Yes, and that's the
Okay.
reason that she's made the suggestion, yes.
All right. Thank you.
At the same time, it appears to have eliminated city council's involvement in the appeals process.
It did, and, one of the rationale in talking with our previous director was that he felt that that may not necessarily be something that council may want to be involved in, that it might be better just to have, some sort of a, municipal court review those particular procedures for its legalities, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I read it word for word, and in the formatting process, I noticed that the text amendment pages like 14 through 21 have the word city, chapter, code, council capitalized, but then the pages before and the pages after do not. And I was just wondering, if that was something that could be corrected, in our motion.
That would be my apologies. It had been my intent to make sure that every time there was a capital letter used. So yes, after perhaps 300 reviews,
Yes,
I
I
must
can
have missed those few. Right?
Yes, I could understand. I read it once and it was, a lot to read. So when I make a motion, I will make a motion to have those particular
Corrected.
items capitalized. Is that?
Thank you.
Okay, all right. And so, are we ready for you? Okay.
Are there any other questions or comments?
I have one, but Councilwoman Wilman, did you have something?
Pardon me?
Do you have something to say?
No.
I know in the past, there's been discussion with the city about where the penalty funds go. And I'm curious, maybe I didn't see it. If somebody is penalized for, there's a $2,500 a day if they fail to comply, where's that money go? That penalty, does it go back into the general fund, or does it go to an abatement fund that they can then be used to help with other abatement issues?
Well, that's a very good question. It's not something I have an answer to. It's something I could definitely find out. It's my understanding that it may go to the general fund at this point. I think you're right. It would be wise if we took those funds and we moved them into our abatement fund, because as you read through, the city does, and even in the previous version, have a circumstance where they would do city abatement, by which means that we would go in, we would clean up the property, we would find a contractor to fix that, and then we would lien the property. At this current time, our abatement funds are in a situation where we don't necessarily have that ability to do that immediately.
I think my preference would be that it goes to a fund, if it's possible, it goes to a fund that can be used for this kind of thing. That way, first of all, the appearance of us finding people and then putting it in the general fund, obviously people are going to have heartache with that because it's a revenue generator rather than it's a beautification revenue generator. Right. So if we had to, we use it. If we don't, it stays there until we need it. And we can't just use it for whatever pet project we have tomorrow. So I guess that would be my thought, would be that we could do something like that. Mr. City Attorney, do you have a thought on that?
Mayor, if I may, Councilmember Dowell, I don't have any negative thought on that. I would recommend, though, that be a change that we let staff work on and bring back, rather than a change that we try to incorporate in the motion. Not like Councilmember Mosley's, I think that's more of a Scrivener's, we can just kind of do that on the fly. But that one, I think, probably needs a little bit of thought, in particular because there are a lot of different levels of fines that have been pegged out for different types of violations. So we want to just make sure that we write it in a way that will work and we won't stumble in trying to implement it.
Understood, thank you. And then my last comment, and this is more to the city manager. There's been a lot of this within the city for code and that, but we have been unable to be proactive on it. We've been more reactive. And I guess I love all the writing in here, but if we're not going to be proactive with the actual enforcement, that gives me a little bit of heartache. And I know that they do the best they can with what they have, but I mean, sometimes we need more code than we need, other things. So just a thought.
Noted, sir. Thank you.
Is there any other questions for me?
No, I think we're ready for the motion, please.
Pardon? Pardon?
We need to pause it for
Is there something we're approving? Because the agenda item says public hearing only.
Oh, then it goes down to
It says, number 2, consideration and adoption of ordinance number 765, amendment to the City of Cottonwood Municipal Code, Title 8, Health and Safety. So that's where the motion comes in.
And Mayor, I'm probably just losing track with the discussion, but did we invite the public, did we open the public hearing and invite the comment? There was none, and so then, yeah, I think if we just move on to item 2, you're right, that'd be the right thing.
Mayor, before we do the consideration adoption, should we see what the appetite for the rest of council is to hold it up for the penalty funds? Or should we just exclude that for now?
I believe the direction from Mr. Gaylord is that we'll consider that at another time. Right now, we'll go ahead, if you're amenable to it, go ahead and approve these amendments, because that's what we're considering at the moment. But, how the funds get designated cannot now, it's impractical, at least, to put it in as part of the current motion. I believe.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we weren't going to hold off on it until they came back. That's my only question. I'm good with it either way.
Mayor and Councilmember Dow, of course, that's your decision to make, but in my, I guess, sort of technical drafting world, I think that is the type of change that we could easily supplement this with. I think it could be a standalone that'd be added. So you could adopt this, and I don't think that would be an obstacle.
Perfect, thank you.
Ready? All right. I move to adopt ordinance number 765 regarding the proposed text amendment to Municipal Code Title 8, Health and Safety, with the additional corrections to formatting, capital letters, and that's my motion.
Okay. Is there a
Second.
second? Thank you. Could we do a roll call vote on that, please?
Councilmember DeWillis?
Yes.
Councilmember Dowell?
Yes?
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Mosley?
Yes.
Councilmember Wilden?
Yes?
Vice Mayor Coates?
Yes.
Mayor Shaw?
Yes,
And that motion carries.
thank you. Next, we have public hearing, introduce and hold a public hearing regarding the adoption of ordinance number 766, amendment to the City of Cottonwood zoning ordinance section 404, general provisions, and Article 2, section 201, definitions. Good evening, Ms. Hayden.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council. I'm Tina Hayden, your Senior Planner with Community Development, presenting on Ordinance 766, otherwise known as case number ZO-25-006, for changes to our Section 404 and 201 of our zoning ordinance. Our request tonight is for you to hold a public hearing and consider and adopt Ordinance 766 with those proposed changes. The purpose is to clarify ambiguous language, enhance standards and criteria where applicable, enhance readability and flow, and align with recent changes to the Arizona revised statutes. On July 21st, we initially brought this to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and they did give a unanimous recommendation of approval to council. We were intending to bring this to council much sooner, but had some revisions to make and bring back to the Planning and Zoning Commission on September 15th with another unanimous recommendation of approval to council. Tonight, October 21st, we are here to have the public hearing of Ordinance 766 and the adoption, and if adopted, would be in effect on November 20th. The next series of slides, the summary of text amendments, does correspond with the bullet points that are in the staff report. Please feel free to stop me if you have any questions. I also have a couple of visuals to help explain the method to the madness. Just some housekeeping changes here. We did do formatting for listing numbers and syntax. We removed 2 subsections within this section as they referenced other zoning ordinance sections and didn't add any additional content. Any indication of Development Review Board, we've changed to Planning and Zoning Commission. Any indication of Zoning Administrator, we've changed to Community Development Director. And we did want to indicate Design Review Approval instead of Planning and Zoning Commission approval, as this adheres with those recent legislative changes. Going into more detailed subsection changes, we have 404G. We're covering building projections, specifically allowing balconies for multifamily residential to project over landscape yards. I do have a visual for this that I'll show you in the next slide. Subsection 404H, adding in safety measures for taller buildings and also clarifying processes for wireless communication structures. 404J, we're covering the repair and replacement of fences. In this case, we're not wanting to require a new fence permit. Say someone runs into your fence, damages it. We don't want to require that as long as you have an approved fence permit and you build it to that approval standard. 404K, we did want to allow for excavation and similar activities in our industrial zones and our community facility zones, subject to a conditional use permit, but not needing a building permit. Currently, it does require an active building permit for these activities. This is that visual I promised regarding 404G. This is for multifamily residential. We're allowing it to project over required street frontage landscape yards, not side buffering yards, only along the street frontage. We are requiring a minimum 10-foot height clearance, 3-foot railings as prescribed per building code. Anything greater than that is going to be considered an enclosure part of the building. Lastly, I'd like to point out that this text amendment will not affect height limitations when adjacent to single-family residential. Another visual regarding building heights, and this is regarding the non-combustible materials. This gold bar here, currently we permit buildings up to 35 feet, 2.5 stories. Anything over that is going to require PAD zoning approval or approval of a conditional use permit. At this red line, though, anything over 40 feet or 3 stories currently requires non-combustible materials for the whole building. We, in an effort to allow for affordable housing, we are trying to remove that non-combustible material requirement, but we do want to have some safety measures in place, specifically indicating that fire flows are still subject to Appendix B. We do want proof of adequate water supply for system redundancies and approval by the fire chief or fire marshal. I'd also like to add that the building official, with the revision we had to bring back to the commission, still wanted to reinforce building codes adherence. Moving on with the bullet point list in the staff report, looking at subsection 404L, we wanted to further clarify the topic of vending machines, indicate design review as opposed to that Planning and Zoning Commission approval, and then create some additional standards for residential outdoor storage. 404N, we wanted to establish purpose and regulations for home occupations, and that permitting process would go through our zoning clearance application. 404Q, we're covering trash enclosures, including an exception for multifamily residential and construction standards. 404U, we wanted to establish when a temporary shelter is considered long-term habituation. We did add in some definitions in section 201. We added in a new definition for cultural resource, historic preservation waiver. We do currently have a definition for junk vehicle. We wanted to modify that to an inoperable vehicle. Some people get a little testy when you call their collector vehicle junk. This was moved to section 201 with the other definitions, but for clarity, we wanted to also keep it in section 404. We did establish a new definition for maintenance. The definition for outdoor storage was moved to section 201 as well as being maintained in 404. And we did revise the definition for repair in section 201. There were some other changes to the definition section, but that was mostly for grammar and just some additional minor clarifications that legal prompted. I believe this is the last slide for summary of text amendments. We did have to reorder subsections for performance standards, use of public sidewalk, and camping within city limits. Our performance standards had to remain section 404V1 as it's indicated in the recently approved noise ordinance. Regarding section 404V, we wanted to revise this to align with our noise ordinance and Arizona revised statutes. We also wanted to enhance performance standards regarding glare or heat and liquids and solid wastes. Subsections W through Z, we intend to address in a future text amendment based on anticipated model ordinances. We made some minor grammar changes, but nothing like content-based changes there. Here is a visual regarding the construction noise times. On this side, we have what we're proposing in this text amendment as aligned with the Arizona revised statutes. This is what's currently in the noise ordinance. The first thing you're going to notice is that the ARS has these dates, October 16th to April 30th, and May 1st to October 15th indicated, whereas noise ordinance has those dates slightly off. Next, on business days, specifically during the summer months, you're going to notice that the noise ordinance indicates a start time of 6 a.m., whereas ARS says that we have to allow a start time of 5 a.m. Also on Saturdays, the current noise ordinance indicates 7 a.m. to an end time of 5 p.m. Specifically on Saturdays, per the ARS, we have to allow an end time of 7 p.m. Lastly, you're going to see this lovely sentence. The pouring of concrete may commence 1 hour prior to the indicated start times. So yes, during the summer times, pouring of concrete may start as early as 4 a.m. And then this slide is just covering the revisions that we brought back to the commission. I believe this is my last slide. Again, those additional syntax changes to both section 201 and 404. Specifically in subsection 404G, we wanted to allow for accessory structures to be located closer than 10 feet to main buildings. We did establish a list of standards to ensure safety. We don't want someone's shed to catch on fire when it's within at least 5 feet away from the building. That's a concern for us. Subsection 404H3, we want to reinforce that those buildings that are exceeding that 3 stories that are allowed to deviate from the non-combustible materials are still subject to building code requirements. Subsection 404H9, create an additional provision for the evaluation of wireless communication structures with regards to public safety within the Verde Valley. This is when we bring a cell tower that exceeds 60 feet, not to exceed 90 feet, to the commission, to the council. This is an additional consideration you can make to approve those cell towers. Lastly, I wanted to indicate that the term fence references either a fence or a wall within that walls and fences subsection. It just got a little tedious saying fence or wall continuously through there. That is the end of my presentation. I'm ready for any questions you may have. I also have our Fire Inspector 2, Chris Matthew, present for any questions, and our Chief Building Official, Cody Blazer, here if you have any questions for them.
Okay, at this point, I would like to open the floor to the public. If there are any public questions or comments, this would be the moment for that. Hearing none, I'll close the floor to the public and ask council for any comment or question.
I've got one for the fire chief. I'm going to call you out, chief. I just want to make sure that we're clear on this because I know in the past, part of our reasoning for not going over a certain height was because some of it was due to the fact that we didn't have the apparatus to reach those areas. So can you just reinforce that we now have the apparatus to go a certain height? Because I know in the past that's been a problem.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Councilmember Dell. Mayor, that is accurate. When we invested the funds from the city to purchase our ladder truck, it gave us the capability to go far beyond our current stature of structures within the community. Additionally, it also gives us the ability to make sure that fire flows for those kind of incidents is sufficient and manageable. And in support of the requirements that are already in code, we are perfectly capable of handling those kind of scenarios.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Any other questions from council or comments?
Apparently there aren't any. I move to adopt ordinance number 765.
I'll second.
765, isn't that what I said?
No, 766, it should be.
Oh, mine's, okay, sorry, 766 says
Yeah, I'll
765
still
here.
second.
What? It says 765?
We did 765.
Well, it's on here,
Now
so that's
doing-
whatever. 766, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
okay. I'm sorry, I got lost there. The motion is to adopt. Did someone second?
Yes.
I did.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so roll call, please.
Councilmember DeWillis,
Yes.
Councilmember Dowell,
Yes.
Councilmember Marks,
Yes.
Councilmember Mosley,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilden,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Coates,
Yes.
and Mayor Shaw,
Yes.
and that motion carries.
My glasses are on order.
I just want to clarify that I hope I made you proud tonight, Chief, using the word apparatus, because I know that's not a.
Okay, we're moving into new business now. The following items are for council discussion, consideration, possible legal action. Number one is consideration and adoption of resolution number 3370, granting the city manager the temporary authority to extend offers of employment at up to 100% of a salary range when hiring highly qualified individuals. Good evening, Ms. Wilbur.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. Amanda Wilbur, Human Resources Director, and as you mentioned, I'm here to request the adoption of Resolution Number 3370, granting the City Manager the temporary authority to extend offers of employment at up to 100% of salary range when hiring highly qualified individuals. So, Council knows we've been through a recruitment process together. You have talked about recruitment and retention throughout our strategic retreat. It's throughout our strategic plan. I think you are aware that it can be challenging at some points. So in efforts to try to work through that and make recruitment a little bit easier, we are looking for ways to add tools to what we have available to us throughout the recruitment process. Currently, our employee manual outlines that the city manager has the authority to make employment offers up to midpoint of our range. Anything above midpoint would have to come back to council for your approval at that point. As you know, sometimes that can take a while to get on the agenda and come back to you. And usually that time frame is a pretty important piece of the recruitment process, because once you're ready to make an offer to someone, you don't necessarily know what else they've been doing recruitment-wise. You would definitely not want to lose an applicant due to this if possible. So part of the rationale for waiving this particular requirement would be to give us that flexibility within the recruitment process to make offers sometimes above midpoint, if that's what makes sense. As you know, also, hiring and recruitment is an operational function that the city manager oversees. So regardless of what gets offered, it's the city manager's responsibility to make sure that he's managing what is appropriate in that particular circumstance. So lots of things go into that decision. If you were to approve this waiver this evening, it does not mean that every applicant would be hired in at 100%, and you might not have anyone hired in at 100%. The majority of our hires end up being between minimum and probably about the first quartile of our range, which is about 25% through our range. So this is just an option to give more flexibility to the hiring process when it is deemed appropriate and fits in with that particular recruitment. We also wanted you to know that this could have budgetary impacts, because when we have vacancies throughout the budget process, it is typically budgeted at less, midpoint or less, depending on what the position is. So if it has been vacant for a while and we have already gone through the budget process and we decide we have a situation where we should make an offer above midpoint, it will likely be higher than what is already budgeted for that particular position. That being said, we often have salary savings, and it's very difficult to give you a very specific number on what that might look like. There are lots of factors that go into this. That includes how many people have left, what were they paid, how long has the position been vacant, how many people are we hiring in, what are we hiring them in at. There are just numerous factors that go into that particular number that make it very hard to predict, to give you a specific number tonight. This request is asking for a temporary waiver for a one-year period. Our intent is to revise the entire hiring section of our manual and bring that back at a later date. The reason we decided to try to ask for this temporary waiver now, ahead of having the entire hiring section done, is we have some positions coming up that it would be a very helpful tool to have available to us. One example of that would be the Community Development Director position that is recently vacant. If you did not know, surrounding communities also have that position open, either recently or currently. Sedona recently filled one, Clarkdale filled one, which caused our vacancy. Camp Verde has that position open, Prescott Valley has that position open, and historically this position is difficult to fill anyways. So this will likely be a challenging recruitment process to begin with. So we're hoping that you are willing to grant this approval so we have that tool in our pocket if we need it when we get to that point. So with that, I welcome any questions you might have of me.
Well, I think you did a very thorough explanation, Ms. Wilbur. Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope we didn't show our hand to the next community development.
When you say temporary, is it temporary till changed, or how does that work?
So the way we have it worded in this document is that it would be good for a one-year time period, and at that point, it would either expire or we would ask for it to be renewed. The other option would be if we have our hiring section of our manual done and already have it back to council, this would just be embedded in this more than likely, and you wouldn't really need to do either of the, it would just expire in this capacity because it would be built into our actual policy, ideally. Unless council decides at some point that's not what they want, then it would be addressed.
I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but the employee manual, the 2008 edition, means it's not been reviewed since 2008, or has been reviewed and basically blessed? What?
So the issue with our employee manual is somewhat complicated. The last full version we had was 2008, and then starting in 2021, I started revising it and tried to switch it to a different format that made more sense, because the one that we have out there is not that easy to follow. So we have pieces of our 2008 manual that have been struck from the record, and we have new policies that are replacing that, but I don't have all of the sections done at this point. We're in the middle of that transition period. So part of our policies are new and part of them are still old and in the process of being updated.
Well, I certainly would want to remove any administrative obstacle that ties the city manager's hands from hiring the best people in this very highly competitive environment. So I would, to me, getting an amendment like this memorialized permanently is, to me is important.
I appreciate that, because a lot of things have changed since 2008. It's definitely a different hiring market, and I agree that it needs changed.
Ms. Wilbur, didn't we have this in the past, just recently, like 75%?
Yes.
Or something like that for the city manager?
Yes. I want to say it might have been 2 years ago now at this point. We did a temporary waiver of this also at 75%. So instead of the 100% that we're proposing tonight, it only went to 75%. So the city manager could hire up to the 75%, and if it was more than that, it would still have to come back to council for that remaining 25%. But that also was only good for a 1-year period.
Okay, I was going to ask that. So that one expired?
That one expired.
Okay, thank you. And I agree with Councilmember Marks on that. We got to do something.
I do think that the flexibility here is highly desirable in the current market. Yeah. Any other comments or questions?
Okay, let me try this one more time.
Okay.
I move to adopt resolution number 3370, granting the city manager the temporary authority to extend offers of employment at up to 100% of the salary range when hiring highly qualified individuals.
I second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember DeWillis?
Yes.
Councilmember Dowell?
Yes.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Mosley?
Yes.
Councilmember Weldon?
Yes?
Vice Mayor Coates?
Yes.
And Mayor Shaw?
Yes.
And that motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have review and discussion of Chapter 2.100 of the Cottonwood Municipal Code regarding the Airport Commission's composition and duties, and direction to staff as warranted.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. Rod Probst, City's Airport Manager.
Good morning, or good evening, Mr. Probst. I'm sorry, I'm lost.
This agenda item is a discussion concerning the Airport Commission, which was created by the council to advise the City Council. It reports to the City Council, and it initially consisted of 5 members, went up to 7. The current chair, who is here of the Airport Commission, seems to think it started with 7 and dwindled to 5, so he could certainly explain that. It's been in existence since 2007, and essentially its duties are all to advise you. One of the issues that certainly is part of the airport, and for the last 6 months has been a large part of my professional life, is noise and addressing noise complaints and noise issues. Part of this discussion would be that we hope to get some guidance on how community concerns are heard by the appropriate body, and that city staff receives clear direction from council regarding the Airport Commission's composition and their scope. The staff recommendation is to keep the council at 5, and instead of 4 of those members being airport tenants or folks with aviation experience, to move that down to 3 and have 2 members that represent the general public, and that all 5 members reside inside of zip code 86326, and that we add a duty about how the commission addresses noise complaints. That is the zip code area that is being proposed. And with that, I'd be happy to answer your questions. And as I said, 4 of the 5 commission members from the Airport Commission are here, including the chair and the vice chair.
So I have a question. In the code, it talks about election of the chairperson, and it says that the commission chair shall set the agenda for all meetings. Has that been the practice?
The practice has been informal, with the chair and I meeting almost weekly. There's not been a formal meeting of the chair and the city clerk and myself. That will start occurring for the November meeting. But I can assure you that the commission chair and I discuss items regularly. He's in my office a lot.
Okay. So that would be one change I would recommend to clarify that practice.
And the clerk and the city manager and I have I've been directed to do that, and I told the chair.
I also do have some suggestions about the complaints section of the code, but if now's the right time to bring it up. As it reads currently, it says to hear complaints and recommend such resolutions as deemed appropriate. I mean, certainly I agree with the to hear complaints part, but then it goes on to say and recommend such resolutions. To me, I think we could be a bit more explicit on the duties of the commission with regard to complaints. So what I drafted is something along the lines of to hear complaints, research common complaints, convene in a working session as needed to discuss those common complaints, and recommend actions to further evaluate or address the complaints. Just to be clear on what the commission is expected to do is to really take an active role in addressing common complaints, would be my suggestion.
That certainly is acceptable. I will tell you, I don't think the commission members have the time to do the research on all the complaints. It takes a good portion of every one of my days to answer the noise complaints and respond. And the council, many of those complaints you're copied on, and certainly the mayor, because she gets all of them, is blind copied on my responses. I think the commission has done over time, and I've been here 6 months, I don't know what they did before that, has done in the last 6 months a good job of trying to address those. The reality is that they have no authority over any of these airplanes when they're airborne, nor does the council, which is very frustrating, and it's hard to explain that to people.
I guess I'm in a slightly different place. I feel that, I agree with you in that I think that I'm not sure that the commission necessarily can take on the full responsibility of researching complaints. So the question then becomes to me, whose responsibility should it be to research the complaints?
I think you pay me to do that.
Okay.
And, you know, again, the reality is, since 1958, local jurisdictions have zero control of aircraft that are airborne because of the federal law, the FAA law that was passed in 1958, and it was even more difficult after 1990 with the Airport Noise and Capacity Act. So when you try to explain that, you know, the city can't enforce Embry-Riddle to go away. We can't get on the radio and say, hey, you've got 5 people in the pattern. We have no authority to do that, and it would be a liability.
And there have been things that you have done, for example, ensuring that for example, ERAU pilots fly in the time periods in which they are supposed to be flying and not before or after. So that's kind of part of what I guess you would need to be doing, and I guess it would be, I guess the code as written with regard to the responsibilities of the commission might then continue as currently written.
I think we should add that they should address noise complaints and overflight concerns, which is not there. That the section you quoted is pretty broad. I think we should narrow it down to address noise issues, and that there is a public forum that people that have concerns can come and address those concerns.
And I believe at the last airport commission meeting that I attended, that was part of the discussion there. The commissioners seemed to be amenable to the idea that they were a body, a group to whom people could come and speak. And that's really like other commissions, the airport commission doesn't have, you know, power to legislate, to say, here's what we're going to make this rule and enforce it. That's not the way that works. So I think the commission's openness to at least hearing and understanding the community concerns is the most important element of that particular section of the code.
So, Mr. Probst, would you see the commission's responsibility to include convening in a working session or other session to discuss complaints?
We could certainly do that. I think the forum of monthly meetings and the opportunity for the public to address the commission is working. I think if you all feel there should be a subcommittee that meets of the commission that would do only noise, that would be acceptable too. But the airport commission meetings in the last 6 months, I've given them the noise complaints. I've learned a little about noise complaints and where they come from. Took me a while to figure out. We had 2 or 3 email addresses that they came to, but I think I got that pretty well handled, and so we could certainly do that. I'm not sure what the benefit is as opposed to what the commission's doing.
And currently, the code does not prevent that from happening. It doesn't necessarily need to be included, but it's not outside of the range of possibility. Is that?
And I think some of the current commission members have opinions about that very subject.
Yes. And that's what I understood. They were expressed at the last airport commission meeting that I attended.
I think they've done a good job in the 6 months I've been here. I think they've tried to explain, along with myself, what can and cannot be done. I think they've been empathetic and sympathetic, and I think they're not promising anything that they cannot do. And then, frankly, the airport, as has been pointed out to the council many times, is owned and operated by the city. It's our issue. And it certainly isn't over my head. It's my issue to be the point of answering questions and concerns. And I can do that.
In the duty section, under subparagraph H, it talks about hearing complaints, including noise complaints, recommends such resolutions, and it says such decisions may be appealed to the city council. Well, who would be appealing, and what would the council's role? I'm trying to figure out. Well, I guess I'm not really understanding what would be appealed to city council, and what would the council's role be?
When I looked at that, when I had that same question. I mean, what is the issue that would be appealed to you? I mean, they make recommendations on leases, and perhaps they might not recommend in leasing to some entity. That could be appealable. What noise issues can they appeal to the council? I don't know that answer. I can tell you that I think the very best thing that's happening right now is that the mayor and the mayor of Clarkdale are meeting with the chancellor of Embry-Riddle, who I believe wants to be a better citizen, a better neighbor. Whether that's happening or not, there's some debate about that. But at least there is some communication, which I'm not sure was happening in the past.
Right.
Madam Mayor, if I could add, and also Mr. Marks, we added the noise language as a proposed amendment. As you stated, recognizing that an appeal of any of that stuff isn't necessarily something that would need to happen. This municipal code's been there for a long time, since the inception. Having spent 30 years in airport management myself, I would expect, much as Mr. Probst stated, that it would most likely come up when folks were concerned that they were going to be, have a lease terminated and that sort of stuff, and they wanted to be able to appeal to the city council, don't kick me out of my hangar, don't do that sort of thing. So inadvertently, by adding the noise thing to try to adjust that, we probably should have removed that section altogether, because it's just not practical. The later part of it that talks about the appeal to council. Because quite frankly, as Mr. Probst said, the council, no offense to any of the council members, but there's not that aviation expertise that would allow you folks to consider a request based on an aviation matter and rule in opposition to our expert over there.
So, Mr. Probst, in the presentation and the briefing package provided to us, it said that of the 3 amendments that city staff would like to make, one is to amend commission duties to specifically include language addressing noise complaints. Does the city staff have a recommendation as to how to revise the code, what the wording would be? What do you recommend?
I think what the city manager just said, to eliminate the appeal and put in there that one of their duties is to hear noise complaints and advise the city council on any solutions that they might have. And again, frankly, other than communicating with Embry-Riddle or communicating with individual pilots who may fly, that we could identify that I could actually go talk to, it's very difficult. We have you all have a very good noise abatement section on the website. So when I interviewed and did my homework, I was very impressed with the noise abatement. But it's a request, it's an ask. It's not enforceable. So I think that the city had been proactive in the past with their noise abatement at the airport, but it's all volunteer. I removed from the automatic weather observation radio transmission that you will fly your airplane at a certain airspeed and make turns at a certain altitude. We're not in the business of telling pilots how to fly their airplanes. That's a huge liability. I'd like to fly all the airplanes in the pattern.
One of my next questions to Chancellor Witcher is that Mr. Wade, who is an airport commissioner, made a suggestion about a change in the flight pattern which would alleviate some of the noise over Clarkdale. It would basically then send it over Cottonwood, so then Cottonwood taxpayers could let us know about that. But what I want to find out from him is what their division of their safety concerns have to be recognized. They're not going to just change that pattern whimsically. They have to evaluate it for safety. And I would like to seek an answer. I will be meeting with Chancellor Witcher again soon, and I also just got an invitation to tour Embry-Riddle, so that might be another occasion for me to kind of be at his elbow and see what we can get done, because all of the residents who suffer from this issue know that they know what the limitations are. I don't think they need to be told for the 50th time that the FAA says blah, blah, blah. This has been gone over and gone over ad nauseum. And the reality is that we cannot simply change the overriding rules from the Federal Aviation Authority. It's not going to happen. So we're trying to negotiate with Embry-Riddle, and we certainly value our Clarkdale residents, our Cottonwood residents. We don't want anybody to go away. We don't want you to move. We want Embry-Riddle to kind of move. Can you move it over there? And I understand that they're working on that. So we're trying to stay connected to that. The answer has not come the way people want it to come. We all want to be able to say, well, I've got a problem, fix it, and have somebody come right out, dash out, and fix it. This is not one of those problems, and it's very unfortunate. I sympathize, the council sympathizes, we're all paying attention to this, and I do read all of the complaints, and I read all of the inquiries from people too. I'm not responding to those. I'm leaving that to Mr. Probst, who does an amazing job of enumerating what the answers to those questions are. But I do want to be clear that we haven't given up. We're not throwing in the towel on this. We're going to keep pushing, and we are making progress, even though now that the weather's lovely and everybody wants to be outside and the sun's coming up later and the flights are coming in at the same times and being annoying, we're working on it. I'm also talking with Mayor Prudhomme Bauer about this issue. I just had a conversation with her about it yesterday, and we're trying to find solutions. We genuinely are.
And I know I've said this before, but I'll say it again. I live at the end of the north runway. I've had my house there since 2017. And I've seen an increase as well in noise. With that said, over the course of the last 3 or 4 months, I think it's reduced somewhat. And I noticed the other day we were taking off and flying from a different direction because I pay attention to that, but not enough to where I can speak to that. But just know that there's people on this council who have the same challenges as people there. And I literally live right off the end of that. And my wife and I commented at the time. So we just know that we're doing our due diligence to do the things that we can do, but there's only so much we can do. And then I want to clarify one thing the mayor said. By flipping the runway, we're sending airplanes over the taxpayers of Cottonwood. And that's not completely accurate, because only a small portion of that other runway is Cottonwood taxpayers. And then we go into Yavapai County and those people as well. So I just want to clarify, they're not all living in the city there.
That wasn't my reference. My reference was to a change in the pattern itself, not going the other way. It's not a change of direction exactly. It's a shift in pattern that was suggested by Commissioner Wade. So
I understand that. It would still put it over other people besides City of Cottonwood people. Not a big deal. I just want to make sure that's clarified.
Right, and I would like to remind those who have been here before that we just last council meeting approved for $35,000 air traffic pattern and runway use analysis study. So we are invested in what is happening. and invested financially in this.
Now, I don't want to, I'm not cutting you off, council members, but I do want to invite the people who have requested to speak to come up. And if after that you have additional comment, please feel free to jump right in. But first is Mr. Mooney, who is one of our airport commissioners.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, council members. I'm Jim Money, Chair of the Airport Commission. Boy, you guys just went over all I had to say, almost all of it. The Airport Commission was founded about 20 years ago, and I'm an original member. At that time, we had 7 members on the commission. We had 2 that left, and we didn't replace them because we found that 5 was almost a magic number. It was a lot easier to deal with. The meetings seemed to run better, and we've been running 5 on our commission since. And as you go through and work on the Airport Commission, I would encourage you to keep us at 5. That would be a good number for us. It's proven itself in the past 20 years. And that's really all I have left. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Any questions?
So I don't know if you can answer this, but if we have 5 members on the commission, what would represent the quorum?
3.
Do you feel like it's a good suggestion to have another member that lives within the 86326 but is not a tenant or lessee of the airport? So that it's 3 to 2?
3 and 2. I would like to see a minimum of 3 aviation-oriented individuals on the commission. I'd really like to see more than that, but 3 would work.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, next is Mary Lou Rose. No, it's good to see you.
Different subject.
You're always welcome.
My name is Mary Lou Rose, and I live in Clarkdale. I'm concerned about the proposed changes to the Airport Commission, and I believe that the changes are moving us in the wrong direction, reducing public representation and limiting membership to only those who live in 86326. The airport's impact extends across the entire Verde Valley, and this change would effectively silence the communities most affected by noise and pollution. Flight patterns don't stop at city limits. Planes taking off and circling over Cottonwood fly repeatedly over Clarkdale and the Verde Valley. The recommendations made by this commission affect thousands of residents who have no say, yet they're the ones breathing the air, hearing the noise, and living with the consequences. The Airport Commission role should not just be to promote and enhance the airport. It should safeguard public health, quality of life, and environmental safety. Any amendment should increase transparency and community representation, not narrow it. Before changing the commission structure, I urge you to ask who benefits and who is left out. Please don't reduce public oversight or make this commission less accountable to the people it serves. Instead, make it more inclusive, more transparent, and more responsible to the community that lives under these flight paths every day. I would suggest 5 is the magic number because they haven't really changed anything in 20 years. So maybe having 7 would help affect some changes if we could get more representation in the community. Thank you.
In response to that, I would like to say that absolutely no one has been silenced, not one single person. Anyone who wishes to approach the dais is free to do so. both in the Airport Commission meetings and here at the City Council. You do not have to live within our city limits in order to come and speak to us and have us sincerely consider your concerns. So that is a misrepresentation that I would really appreciate being able to get past.
Of course we can speak, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak at every time. What I'm talking about is the composition of the Airport Commission being limited to 86326. Not here. I talk all the time, and you're very kind and let me talk. But I'm talking about the commission makeup being limited to 86326.
Well, the commissioners, regardless of where they live, are ultimately answerable to the council. We make the decisions. They make recommendations to us. We do not have to accept their recommendations. We can make alternative recommendations. So therefore, you have the opportunity to address them. You equally have the opportunity to address us.
I understand and I appreciate it, but I still think the composition of the commission should be more inclusive of other zip codes. That's all, but thank you. I don't want to take up too much time.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor, if I could just clarify that a little bit. As the municipal code is written today, only one member of the commission can reside outside of the city limits, but that member must be a tenant or a lessee. The hope here was to actually broaden that scope of those members that could be on there, specifically the non-aviation folks. And that's why our recommendation was there. But this does not tighten things up. It actually loosens the footprint of those residents of Cottonwood, including those in the unincorporated areas that could serve on the commission.
Is there any commission that is open to residents outside of 86326 that we have?
As it stands today, the Historic Preservation Commission allows those if they have an expertise in, related to the historic district or historic housing or something like that. The clerk may be able to add further, but their participation is included so that their participation results in improvements to the city of Cottonwood.
Okay. Let me continue with those who wish to speak. Next is Carla Erickson. Would you like to step forward, please?
Madam Mayor and Council, thank you for the time. And I know, Madam Mayor and Mr. Probst, I do copy you on my letters to the county commissioners. We can hold ERU accountable, and we need to hold them accountable. They did make promises to us, and they're not abiding by them. But right now, I want to talk about my concerns with the two issues 2.100. I'm concerned about these proposed changes to the residency requirements for the airport commission members. Limiting this membership to the zip code 86326 restricts participation to just those living in Cottonwood and Verde Valley. This is problematic as the ongoing issues with the noise and pollution affect Clarkdale residents even more directly. I am a Clarkdale resident, by the way. Excluding individuals from the most impacted area, in my opinion, is a mistake. It is also concerning to me that the airport manager who coordinates with the commission lives in the village of Oak Creek, yet resides out of 86326, and those outside are barred from serving, but the airport manager lives outside that zip code. The airport affects the entire Verde Valley, and representation on the commission should be open to all residents within the region. Diverse viewpoints and geographic perspectives are essential to fair and balanced decision-making. Restricting participation gives the impression of stacking the deck to favor certain interests rather than ensuring broad community representation. Secondly, given the proposed changes, it's more important than ever to continue the airport noise working group. This group brought together residents from across the area and provided valuable ideas, feedback, and potential solutions that complemented, excuse me, it's an emotional subject to me, the work of the Airport Commission. I am concerned by the City of Cottonwood and Mr. Pope's apparent determination to disband this group. I thought it was very important for everybody. Collaboration fosters trust and strengthens relationships between the city and the communities most affected by airport operations. Limiting who can serve on the commission or contribute to working groups creates the perception of closed-door decision-making, rules made for some but not for all. Transparency, inclusiveness, and community engagement should remain at the heart of this process. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next is Laura Jones.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. My name is Laura Jones. I'm a Clarkdale Town Council member, but I am here today as the chair of the Cottonwood Airport Noise Working Group. That group was put together in 2024 to act as an advisory capacity to discuss, research, and provide recommendations to help mitigate community concerns related to airport operations and airport noise. It was made up of members of the community from Clarkdale and Cottonwood and the flight schools. The group had 3 meetings and were, I think, moving in a really great direction until they were disbanded. And I do think that it is important, and I think it really gave the community a sense that there was going to be a concentrated effort to look at the noise issues. And I appreciate Mr. Prope's perspective on what can and cannot be done. I did a little research today to see what our local other airports do around this. So I went to the Sedona website and looked at their video that talks about no touch and goes, noise sensitive areas, populated areas, traffic patterns. They're all those kinds of things that Sedona gives to folks who are going to use that airport. That is also the case in Payson. And in Payson, they also give traffic pattern suggestions for pilots. They give them recommendations of the way that they would like them to use the airport. And I get that they're voluntary, and I get that there's probably really no way to do that. But I do think that it would be really beneficial to the community if the noise working group was continued, because it technically still wasn't disbanded at the last meeting, so I guess we're still technically there. Maybe pared down, but also to allow representation from the Verde Villages, from Clarkdale, from Cottonwood to come together with the airport manager to look at our noise abatement program, to look at where we can put recommendations in place. At the last Airport Commission meeting, Commissioner Wade suggested that we actually start to put some of this in writing. The efforts that he's been making would then give us an opportunity to present something more formal to not only Embry-Riddle, but any of the other flight schools or anybody who wants to fly here. And I do think we were just moving in the right direction to really be able to come together as a community and for everybody to feel heard and for us to be able to make recommendations. So I would love to see the Airport Noise Working Group continue. I'm all in support of paring it down to fewer than 12 members because that was a little unruly. But I do think it does really serve an important vehicle for us to all work together. So that's all.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. I appreciate too. I think the technicality here is not that the noise working group still exists. It's that it was never sanctioned by the city or its council in the first place. And that's why it's in front. But the problem too, I feel badly that your efforts as a working group were portrayed as failing in some way because as you point out, you never really got going in very far before Mr. Tripp left, and that kind of put an end to things, at least for that point. It may be a point for us to actually need to say, okay, that working group doesn't exist anymore, and let the Airport Commission, because there was a proposal at the last Airport Commission meeting, which you attended, when I was there at least, that we could reorganize the group. And that might still be a possibility, but it may not be, exactly the same, or it may be, constituted differently. But the commission simply tabled that, and the point too was made that you always have the opportunity to come and address the commission itself, just as you have the opportunity to address council. So, both of those things continue to be possible. And I think one of the questions that I had was, what is required of a working group? Does that become another layer of government? Are they subject to open meeting law? Do they have to obey Robert's Rules of Order? What kind of rules are imposed on a group that the city says, okay, we're going to appoint this? Because it's possible for us to do that. We understand that we could do that. We haven't done that. Apparently, the city did not do that, but it's possible to do. And all sorts of opportunities are possible, including the possibility, I know Mr. Probst has mentioned having ad hoc committee meetings, having groups of people meet and discuss issues. And there would not be any, no one would be precluded from taking part. Anybody from any area, anybody who wanted to come could come to that, I think, unless, rules were established for how many people there could be, who could attend. Is this, are we going to have a call to the public? It gets complicated when you're so stringently organized. I felt very comfortable in meetings that I've attended with VVAir. It's just been a good way to talk and understand the research that's been done, the concerns, and what are we talking about and why are we talking about it. I've really appreciated being able to take part in those discussions, and I'm willing to come back and do it again. But I think it's important to consider, how we want to organize a noise group. And so in the event that the city decides that it's disbanding this group, it isn't necessarily a reflection, and I would not couch it in terms of the prior existing group having failed. That's not it. It's just that, you never really got to get going in the first place. So how we do this is still open to discussion, starting with the commission, unless the council wants to take this issue on itself. The commission tabled the discussion, and I really think it's a good idea to bring that discussion back and decide, what are the parameters for noise abatement groups, and go from there. There's nothing that prevents us from continuing on, and I really appreciate the work that was done in the short amount of time that you had to do.
Did a lot of work.
Good job.
Well, I want to make sure that this gets addressed by the Airport Commission first, because it's tabled with the commission.
Correct. And for clarity, I need to go back to the staff report. I've talked with the city attorney. So for clarity, Mr. Probst has disbanded the airport working group, the noise working group. That was his authority alone as the airport manager. He has done so. For transparency purposes, the item before the commission was to approve or ratify his decision. If they were not in favor, they could make a recommendation then to the city council that the council directs staff to reconsider it. But it would be a reconsideration of the airport manager's authority to have already disbanded that. And so that's a clarification that needs to be on the record.
Thank you. Good. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question, Mayor. I have a question, Mr. Probst. I think it's a simple question. So what was city staff's basis or rationale for the membership composition to the zip code 86326 rather than confining membership to the city of Cottonwood, within Cottonwood city limits?
Madam Vice Chair, I think you probably need to ask the city manager that question because I'm not sure where that came from.
Staff, in hearing from folks, figured that there had been a request to include more non-aviation related commission members. And additionally, we have heard from community members that, hey, I would love to sit on commissions, but the city limits is literally like right across the street from me. And so the goal was to expand it. Typically, communities will offer anyone within, the city of Cottonwood here to serve on that. And we have a lot of city of Cottonwood residents that are not within the city limits, so they don't have that ability. Again, that's a council decision. You folks could keep it the way it is. That was simply a recommendation we were making because we had heard from the public, from some of those that reside in Cottonwood, that they wanted to be able to serve on commissions in general. And this was that opportunity as we looked at that.
Right, so I guess my thought would be if we're allowing anybody in 86326, which is also outside the city, why couldn't we just say 86326 and whatever Clarkdale's is?
86324.
Thank you. It was here. I just had all these zip codes. So that's my only thing is, if you said you had to live in the city limits, I'd be like, okay. But we're saying 86326.
Right.
So we still have people outside the city that can be on it, but
We're not allowing Clarkdale.
Clarkdale.
It doesn't.
So I
seem
guess
fair.
that's where my thing would be. If you just said, city limits, I'm like, okay, but it's not. Right now, it's 86326, and as much as people in 86326 who live outside the city are affected, I think 86386.
And
I'll just say Clarkdale.
I also think it's worth noting that there are some inconsistencies in the language as it currently sits that was brought up by Ms. Mosley. We referenced city limits, but we also, in that same area, reference incorporated areas. And so we would need to do some clarification on that, regardless of what direction council gives us and what you want from those residency requirements.
Yeah, I tried to check out the map, but it flashed by pretty quickly. And what I was wondering is, what is 86326? And I'm assuming that it includes the Verde villages.
Yes. Yeah.
But that's about it, isn't it? I mean, you go across 89A.
Bridgeport. Yeah.
Bridgeport, thank you, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well.
I mean, I guess my feeling is consistent with what Councilmember Dowell has said, is that, I think either we keep it to Cottonwood city limits or we include all of 86326 and 86324. If we did that, then I think we might want to consider broadening it to 7 members, to have 1 member from 86324. However, the only caution with that is that, just because there is a representative from Clarkdale doesn't mean that they would necessarily be representing your interests or concerns. So that doesn't, mean that your point of view or concerns will be represented by that individual. So I think my point of view would be, in the interest of fairness, to limit it to 5 members and to Cottonwood city limits. is my current thinking.
I agree, because if you extend it beyond that, it gets very convoluted, very difficult, and people that live in Cottonwood, people that vote for Cottonwood, it should be just limited to that.
I kind of felt that too. I mean, I was sort of open to the idea of expanding it, but you know, if we start including other municipalities in this, that's kind of counter to the fundamental essence of a city commission. You know, it's just, in some ways it's desirable, but in some ways it really isn't. It could really go wrong in too many ways that it's hard to consider sitting here now. I just think we would, you know, be opening ourselves up to something that may be pretty unappealing in the long term. So, anything else? Any other? We're not voting on anything. This was just a point of discussion, and so.
Well, I want to go back and be prepared for a shock. A non-noise related question related to duties. And, you know, there's a list of duties, 11 duties overall, or subsections. And, you know, several of those duties involve advising the city council, you know, plans for the regulation of future growth, development, and beautification, proposed land use, policies governing budgeting, rates, and fees. This is about the 11-month mark for me on council, and, you know, have yet to hear, you know, anything that falls under these duties. I've been to the commission meetings, but other than that, you know, there's not a lot of information being pushed from the commission up to the council, and I'm just wondering how, you know, I'd like to get your thoughts on how we can potentially improve upon that.
Part of their duties is to meet with you annually and report what's going on at the airport. And I intend to talk to the chair about maybe doing that quarterly instead of annually, because it says it should be done at least annually. Some of the duties, like approving leases, we haven't done a new lease out there in a long time. I'm working on one now that will come to the commission and ultimately to the council for an amendment. But you're absolutely right. When I got here 6 months ago, we were well underway for the budget preparation, and so the commission was not involved with that because they basically had been put on hold since the previous manager left. They should be involved with helping the finance director with the airport budget because they see things that a lot of us don't see. I mean, I'm out on the airfield at least once a week driving around, but I don't see what they see. I don't see, hey, there's a crack in the taxiway and my tail wheel gets stuck because I'm out there in a Tahoe driving around. So I think that's absolutely something that should occur, and we can certainly make that happen.
Anything more?
Just quickly, I don't know that we need to do quarterly, maybe just every 6 months or so. Start with that, see how that feels and works.
I will certainly take the city manager's direction on that one.
Noted. I think it would be worth adding, also related to your question, Mr. Marks, through you, Madam Mayor, that the council cannot delegate its authority on certain matters, from grant approvals to lease approvals and that sort of thing, which is why the language is specific to recommendations from the commission to council. Even if council wanted to with regards to master plans and that sort of thing, we couldn't delegate that authority to the commission. So it's important that they make their recommendation, and this body ultimately makes those decisions for the community.
Well, I mean, one area is rates and fees, and I know, Mr. Probst, you were talking about putting together an ad hoc group, which is, you know, certainly, you know, under your authority, but, you know, I'd like to know what the commission thinks also. in terms of rates and fees, and what their input is.
Certainly, they were concerned about noise. They asked me to do a presentation at their first commission meeting, which I did. We've talked about Part 150, and Part 150s are confusing, and then they lead to a Part 161. And so we did a informal presentation on that. Councilmember Mosley pointed out that you all approved spending money with our on-call consulting firm to do an airspace and Calm One runway analysis. When that comes back, it will come to the commission and ultimately to the council, because we can change the traffic pattern altitude, and we can designate a Calm One runway or not. So that will be not really an ad hoc kind of presentation. That will be much more formal.
Well, okay, maybe I wasn't clear. I'm talking about, you were talking about an ad hoc group for rates and fees.
Yes.
Well, why wouldn't the commission be, isn't that one of the duties of the commission to make recommendations on that?
Yes, but there's two ways you do rates and charges at airports. The airport manager calls around and says, what are you charging for dirt in Sedona and Payson and Winslow and Wickenburg? What are you charging for hangars? What are you charging for tight ends? Or you ask the on-call consulting firm, which are experts in it, and a third party to do that. I've done it both ways. Then it would come back to either an informal group discussing rates and charges. And we do have an ordinance that was passed, I think, in 2023, which talks about rates and charges. Question asked when you all came out and toured was, are all these cars that are parked out here paying? The answer is, I don't know, they should be. We should be getting $50 a month revenue from them. So all of that needs to be done, and the commission would be in the middle of that. But they're not going to do the heavy lifting to get that data. I am, or the consultants are.
I don't mean to belabor it, but it specifically says it recommends policies governing rates and fees.
Well, that would have to come to them with a recommendation to you as a council.
Okay,
But I guarantee you, they did not have the background to do rates and charges analysis.
But then, should it not be part of their duties? I guess I'm not clear on that.
I would do it, or the consultants would do it, and we would present it to the commission, and they would then make a recommendation or not to the council.
Okay.
But they don't have the wherewithal to do that heavy lifting.
Well, how the sausage is made, is not really, my main concern here. Just that, that they're involved in the process, and we're seeing, something come out of that process.
Absolutely, I agree 100%.
Anything more?
I would just add that I understand Councilmember Mark's comments with regard to how the code is currently written. It could suggest the commission has a larger role than it actually does, and I don't know if that's something that staff may want to consider in terms of revising it so it's a bit more clear the extent of the commission's responsibility and the role of the airport manager in relation to the commission.
Yes, and I've been taking notes on that. When we bring back the draft ordinance, we will include all of the red lines in there so the council can see the changes we've made.
Right, because the commission's responsibility it may not be to actually gather the information to make the recommendation, but it is their responsibility to recommend to council what their discussion yields, and that's about it. That's kind of the end of their responsibility.
The airport manager isn't mentioned at all in there, in the ordinance. It says the city manager can assign staff to help them, but there's no mention of the airport manager. They don't advise me. They're not tasked to advise me.
Right. Right.
I have one more thing, Mayor.
Go ahead.
As I sit up here, Mr. Probst, I I can't get away from the wonder why the working group wouldn't have some effectiveness, especially since they really don't have any voting or anything other than like more of a consulting type of thing. So I guess that's where I struggle with is I understand why, we think about the airport commission and that makeup, but why not allow a working group just to come up with ideas and talk and throw things out there for consideration, because we're not out anything. We haven't lost anything.
I don't think that the issue of the working group, we're dealing with the technicality only, and that is that the airport noise working group, as it was formed, was not formed through the city or the council. And so the idea of letting it go doesn't mean that it has to be eliminated or that we don't, we can't reconstitute it because it can be.
Okay, so I agree with that. So I guess my thought would be, I believe it should be reconstituted, or it should be brought up however we have to do it in order to meet city standards.
Well, and my concern about that was, in what form does that have to take? Because right now, they actually have a working group. And, VVR is that group. The people who participate in that can talk to each other. They can meet whenever they want. They're not subject to open meeting law. They don't have to have their minutes on file.
I don't think a working group would have to have, a commission would, but a working group, I don't know.
Maybe not. But that was part of my question is, what do we want that to look like? Because if we as the city are going to constitute it, then we have to set requirements for that.
I understand that.
We can't just say it's, hey, whatever.
No, I understand. I just want to make it clear that I believe it should exist.
Okay, got it.
In my defense, they were gone before I got here. So if I misspoke and said they were ineffective, that was simply from conversations with folks who were here, not my personal observation. And again, on June 5th, the acting city manager wrote the mayor of Clarkdale and said, that group is gone. They don't exist anymore. I have no problem if the council wants to resurrect that in some form. I'll be happy to do that. I'll be happy to staff that. But I think the mayor's concern is, and the attorney can speak to this, are they a public body? Do they require minutes? Do they have to follow the rules of order? All of those things were addressed prior to my arrival, and I think it was onerous. Wasn't here, but appeared to be.
Well,
I guess I would just like to see a mechanism by which this working group or this entity could air their concerns and or do some of the research. I've interacted with the VVR group, as Mayor Shaw has, and have been impressed with their diligence in collecting information and researching options to address their concerns. So I'm not sure what the mechanism is, but I think Mayor Shaw suggested, VVR is a very effective group. Is there anything to say that they cannot just come and meet with you, Mr. Probst, on a monthly basis?
I would be very open to that. I have met with them when I first got hired. I'd be happy to meet with them regularly. I would be happy to seek the guidance of the city manager and the city attorney on bringing that group back into some form or fashion. And I think that I think your airport commission, currently is that body, but there's nothing that says we couldn't get some guidance and do something differently.
I think that should be up to you and the commission. I'm personally a stickler on the council addressing council business. I don't think, and from a technicality, and I understand people don't want to hear this, and this doesn't reflect, the concern we have for people who are affected by the noise, but I don't think the noise working group right now is technically council business.
Mr. Marks, Mayor and Council, the depth of the discussion with regards to the working group goes beyond what was agendized for the municipal code specifically. I would recommend as one of our next items, if there is a vote and a desire from council to pursue a working group during future agenda items, something like that could be brought up and we could get some formal direction on that right now.
I would like to not set any kind of agenda item at this point. I want the item to come back to the Airport Commission. They tabled this. Let them discuss it and see what their recommendations are and go from there. And if at that point we want to agendize it, we can. I think we've covered the topic. Everybody understands that we're not trying to silence anyone. As I said at the outset of this, no one is trying to do away with anyone's ability to communicate or speak, not as a group and not as individuals. So let's move along, if that's all right with you. If you're fine with it, I'm going to conclude new business by reading the ordinances and the resolution that have passed. Ordinance number 765, an ordinance of the mayor and city council of the city of Cottonwood, Yavapai County, Arizona, declaring the document titled 2025 Municipal Code Title and Amendments as a public record, adopting the same by reference, and amending the municipal code of the city of Cottonwood to read as set forth therein, providing for severability and providing for penalties. Ordinance number 766, an ordinance of the mayor and city council of the city of Cottonwood, Arizona, declaring the document titled 2025 Amended Zoning Ordinance, Section 404 and Section 201 updates as a public record, adopting the same by reference and amending the zoning ordinance of the city of Cottonwood to read as set forth therein, providing for severability and providing for penalties. Under new business, resolution number 3370, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Cottonwood, Arizona, authorizing the city manager to extend offers of employment at up to 100% of the salary range for a given position. Okay. And then we do have council member request for future agenda item. There's something that you want to put on the agenda? Anybody got one of those? No? Hearing none. Next is the monthly financial report. This is for months March, April, May, and June of 2025. Is somebody presenting that, or are we just blowing on by?
Madam Mayor, those reports are just submitted by financial services for you to
just for
review and if
information
you
only.
have questions.
And so are there any questions about them? I didn't see anything. Claims and adjustments for October 21st, 2025 is next. I would accept a motion to approve.
So I move to accept the claims report for October 21st, 2025.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye. I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you all. You could
I couldn't watch it. I watched it.